In this video, we're just going to go through how to create a walk cycle using a forward kinematic skeleton. So if you just load in your Robin copy from your pack, and this file, as you can see here, is a load of Illustrator layers that make up a little 2D robot, dustbin robot man called Robin. So the first thing we need to do is just go into all these layers and make sure all our joints line up, just like when we were doing the pick whip tutorial. So here, we're just going to grab the pan behind tool and move all these joints so they actually bend in the right space when we start to rotate them all before we start to get parenting. So you can see this is split up into a right and left hand side. So the upper arm and the right legs and feet. So when this all spreads out, should be shaded correctly to work. So when we've got all this together, then we're going to start parenting all of our joints. The first thing to do is just make sure we've got all these in alignment for every layer. Now that's done, we just need to go in and make sure, and then start our parenting process. So we're going to start from the neck up. So the lid's going to be parented to the head, and the head's going to be parented to the neck, and then the neck's going to be parented to the body. And the same with the arms. So the lower arm's going to be the upper arm to the body, the right foot to the shin to the thigh to the body, and obviously they're exactly the same with the left hand side as well. So this is going to ensure that all our body parts are fully connected throughout the entire skeleton, and the body's obviously not parented to anything. As you can see now, if we move the body's position, it's going to move the entire skeleton and scale everything up as well, because it's all parented and rotated at the hip there. And then if we have a look at our rotation on our neck, that works. And if we go to our upper right arm, you can see it's rotating the entire arm. So now getting started on our actual walk cycle, we're just going to come into our composition settings and make sure we're set to 25p, because we're going to be working off a spec that works with that. So then we're going to come down and trim our comp work areas to 2 seconds, because we don't need any more than that. It's the most we could need to create a walk cycle, and this will allow us to then loop this comp afterwards. So to create this walk cycle, we're going to follow this outline, which governs the contact down, pass point up, and then contact position. You can see you can get 2 passes in a 25p segment, which then starts you at the original position, and therefore we can loop to make the cycle. So the first step is just to move our character into that first position. So you can see here, we're just going to move the left leg backwards and the right leg forwards, and both arms as well, just to get that first contact position that's going to be on our starting frame, and then we'll continue until we loop back. So now we just go to 4 frames in and move to our first down contact position. So we're just going to physically move the character down and then start to adjust the knees and elbows so it sits in its downwards positional stance in all of its limbs. And now you can see from these 2 keyframes that slight movement down, and all the limbs kind of crushing into that kind of downward position. Just going to slightly move the head as well, just to accentuate this start of the animation. So now that we've completed our second set of keyframes, we can start to work on the pass position, or keyframe 7, and this is where your character's feet cross over, so feet and arms cross over in the middle of their walk cycle, or the first half of their walk cycle. So you can see if I just speed up this process, we can have a look at where we get to on our third keyframe. And here you can see that the walk cycle is starting to come together. We've got that downward motion, and then the 2 legs dragging across, and arms and everything about to cross each other in this pass position, this first pass position keyframe. So now just moving on to keyframe 10, which is our first up position. So this is where your character is at the top of the walk cycle and is stepped up and off the floor, so it's pushing himself up. And you can see here as we start to cross over the arms after that pass position and push that motion upwards, you can see all the limbs reacting, and that's the sort of kind of up push we want on that 10th keyframe. So now that's about half of it done. As you can see it in those points, we're just going to continue this process until you get all 25 frames done, and there we can create a loop walk cycle. So now I'll just speed this up so you can see the end result. So here's our end result, our walk cycle of Robin. You can see we've just got some secondary movement in there as well, with the head bobbing back and forth. We've kind of added in, but generally it's just following that 25p template with all of these layers. And this is a FK, forward kinematic skeleton rig. So obviously this is an FK workflow of how to make a walk cycle. So I'm just going to come in and trim this to 1 second so we can loop it, make sure we've got a new composition set to 25p. And then if we pop Robin in there, it's a little bit big. So we come and scale him down about half the size. There he is. And then if we, in the same way we learned in our looping session, if we come in and make that, say, 10 seconds long, we can just go to time, enable timer mapping, and this will allow us to then come in and create a loop out expression. So we're going to alt click the stopwatch and go in here and go to property and loop out, and then you just stretch your footage across the entire timeline, and you'll see this will create a looped walk cycle. And there you have it. After following that template of a 25p timeline, we've created a FK rig and then animated that to create a looping walk cycle.